Good evening. So we got the MacBook Air 2018 and we're gonna do a gaming review on it to find out, does it suck? Well, we've done this for several of the previous Macs. We've done it for the MacBook Pro, 2016, 17, 18, even 15 I believe, the MacBook Air, even the MacBook, the regular one, which I think is a 12-inch. So this is the new MacBook Air. It hasn't been refreshed for a while. So we're gonna see how well it performs in gaming. So if you can see over here, this is the standard i5 1.6, 8 gig RAM, the Intel graphics 617, which has 1.5 gig of memory on it. So we're gonna do a bunch of tests on it first, and then we're gonna see how well it does in gaming. We're gonna have timestamps also in the description so you can skip through the ones you wanna see. One thing I would say is I'm doing these videos, as you can see, just for free. I can't monetize them because I don't even have 1,000 subscriptions. So I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe. I'll keep making those videos each time they release a new Mac. I'm mostly focusing on the smaller Macs because the 15-inch, there's always people reviewing them how well they do in gaming, but nobody does really good reviews on, you know, the more portable type, you know, like the Air or the 13-inch or the 12-inch or so on. So I appreciate if you can do that. So we're gonna start ahead with a quick speed test for the disk. Let's see how well that performs. So we have about, say, 500 megabytes per second on write. Ooh, and about 1.8 gigs in read. It seems to be consistent on write. And 1.8 in read. Okay, so we'll compare that compared to previous Macs just so you can see how well, if it's faster or not. You should see that also. That information I'll put in the description as well. We're going to do a Nova test. This will basically do you know, several floating points and different. It does also graphics test, so you can see how well that score is. Of course, I'll put the comparison numbers with the other Macs I tested. I can go as far back as 2016. I'm trying to see what would make more sense for your buck. So if you're paying this much money, you want to know if you're better off getting, for example, a MacBook Pro, let's say as far as 16 or 17 instead of the MacBook Air 2018. So let's see how well this performs. Well, score is 749. As you can see, the graphics test are 51. 3D frames per second, 116. That's quite terrible. I'll show you that compared to... Anyways, we're gonna see in games, but let's move on to the next one. The final test we're gonna do is the Geekbench for... We're gonna do a CPU one and we're gonna do a compute one. The compute is the graphics one, if I'm not mistaken. I think this performs adequate in games. It would be a very good option for a portable laptop, especially if you're traveling a lot. I usually use the 13-inch MacBook Pro. It's quite capable. I've had the 16, 17 and 18. Not much improvement between the 16 and 18, I can tell you that much. I'm hoping they soon integrate the RX Vega or other graphics that are going to be on the 13-inch and not only focus on 15-inch. Anyways, one we can always hope. Alright, single core 4361, multi-core 7936. That's not very good. Let's take a look at the graphics. Alright, graphics score 21072. I'm going to show you what that looks like compared to, say, 2016 or 2017 or 2018 MacBook Pro. Let's see how well that's going to do in games. Okay, so what does all this mean? Well, let's do some Blizzard gaming and see how well each one of these games work too with the current video card. Alright, so if you look at the bottom right corner, you can see it's doing 12 frames per second. Yippee. Let's see what setting it's on. So Well, that's too high for resolution. High, everything. So let's go with default. Oh, that is a default. Okay, let's assume we keep the same resolution but lower. Turn off shadow, low texture, low physics, cluster density off. So here we're lowering, oh, you have a low FX button too. So we're lowering all that but leaving that high resolution on. So we're still in the city, there's no action, it's still 15, 16 frames per second, which is terrible. Alright, so clearly we can't play at that resolution, so let's drop it to 1440. I should expect a much better result. (44, 38, 44). Not sure how playable that is.
We've got to reach the exit. Well,
Let's try and see what happened during any sort of action. 35, 38, 42. So it seems to be stable at that resolution, but I can't say it's the smoothest experience in the world. It doesn't drop lower than 37, so that's a good sign. Let's see if we can do a little bit better than that. Alright, we're gonna drop... Oh, it's already on all low and off. And at 1440, and we're doing barely 44 frames per second. Not sure you really want to drop it lower than that, but... because it's just gonna look terrible. Let's see if this makes any difference. 48, 39, not really. Okay, so is it playable? God. I mean, just don't play like what I'm doing right now, which is I'm playing seasonal and what is that called? Suicide mode. So if you die, you don't come back. So I would not do that with this game. Alright, so at best, unless you really wanna, and already as you can see, texture model is as terrible as it is, but if you wanna play Diablo, you could. The maximum you're gonna get is about 44. It's gonna be as low as 37 frames per second, and this is at the very lowest setting and at 1440. So let's go ahead and take a look at another game. This game will be Heroes of the Storm. Very slow. All right. Okay. Ooh, look at that, 71 frames per second, 68, 69. Actually, that's quite decent. Let's see what settings I have. So graphics, wow, doesn't really allow you to do much, but it is at resolution 1152. Let's go to 1440 so we can be consistent with the other ones. Everything else is low or off. It should be similar to how Diablo was being played. I'm getting 51 frames per second, 52 frames per second. I don't know if you can see that on the top left corner. No action yet. It went really choppy to 19, 12 frames per second. 32. Definitely doesn't like action. 38, 22, 37. I would not play competition, that's for sure. Definitely gets choppy when there's action. $45, $46, $47. Okay. And mind you, this is everything off or low, and it's at the 1440. So if we go to that recommended setting, which is 1152, 46, 47. Let's see how. Oh, I think it still dropped to 28, but we're gonna see when we try again. $51, $54, $56. It's definitely playable. I can't say it's terrible graphics. It's not terrible. Definitely playable at that resolution. 50, 45, 42, 43. Yeah, definitely you can have far more stable frames per second if you play at that resolution, 1152. At 1444, it's just gonna get very choppy when you're playing, so you know it's gonna affect your win percentage, let's put it that way. All right, let's take a look at the next game. So it is currently, it keeps defaulting to the 1152 setting and putting everything either on low or on off. Portraits 2D, so I don't think it's. Oh, I can put metal beta. Okay, so that might improve things. Okay, well, it still does the same settings, but we're gonna pump it up while we're playing, see how well it does. For now, let us play.
Not enough minerals.
82 frames per second, awesome. How's the graphics looking? Playable. I can't say it's bad, but while we're here, let's see if we can pump this up a little bit. 1440. Keep everything else the same. We dropped to about 45, 60, 77 frames per second. Again, we haven't seen any action yet, so let's see some action.
Additional supply depots required.
I'm curious how much I can move this up without suffering from some jitters. Before, of course, we have some action. So let's go 2880. Oh, the doesn't really show you that well on top left corner. It definitely went lower resolution. I mean, lower font, but it's about 42 frames per second. It looks nice. Let's see how well it's gonna do. It's definitely a little jittery, but again, we haven't seen any action yet. So far, okay, we have some action finally.
Stay vigilant. The Tal'Darim sends his holographic warriors to your position.
It does drop to about 36, 37 frames per second, but we haven't even started the action yet.
Coming to our base, and they do not look too happy. Orders received.
51, 41 frames per second.
Yes, sir. SCV ready.
46, okay, here we go. 27 frames per second, but it is definitely a bit choppier. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop it back to 1440.
Go, go, go.
55 frames per second, definitely playable this way. So I wouldn't say you even need to drop it to what there was recommended, 1152. I think you can definitely play at 1440. Of course, I put all these settings all the way off or low. I can play around with that. Let's see. Options. Let's say graphic quality medium.
Hyperion call program ready.
It's thinking. Still thinking. Okay.
Accessing security terminal.
28 frames per second, 46 frames per second, 37 frames per second. You do get a hit about 20 frames per second. I can't say that it's significantly better.
System defenses have been activated.
It's a bit choppy, so I wouldn't go that far. I wonder if I can manually adjust something. Shaders, low, terrain, medium, effects, quality, medium, post-processing, unit portrait. Let's keep that 3D. We're back to 60 frames per second. Excellent. So you can definitely play medium. And just so I can tell you exactly what setting I put, this is 1440. I have custom setting. It was actually default medium, but I just changed the first one to low, which is the shader. And it's actually very playable.
Care to assist?
Awesome. Now let's do the next game.
I have regained control.
Alright, the next game will be Hearthstone. Now this is not really a very graphics intensive game, but it is in the roster, so might as well see how well that does. Now it runs smoothly on smartphone, so I don't expect it to be disappointing there, but we're gonna pump up the graphics to the max. Yes, that's nice, thank you. Okay. So it is at 1440, but we're gonna go all the way 2880. We're gonna go quality high. There we go, maximum possible setting. Now you can't see really frames per second in this game, but I mean you'll be able to notice if there's any choppiness or, you know, it's gonna be playable anyway or another, but let's just do this test anyways. And this is at absolutely the highest possible settings the game will allow you to play. Well, this guy's gonna be lucky because I'm gonna be quitting halfway. Don't try so hard, man, you're gonna win. Let's go, Amimbo. Not really any well, there is a little bit of a lag. Let's see. Definitely playable, but I wouldn't say it's not a little laggy. But you can definitely play at the highest resolution. I mean, it's not like gonna affect your gaming performance, but let's say we drop it a little bit. Medium. Yeah, much smoother. Look at that. Let's see in our turn. Yeah, much easily playable that way. So 2880 medium is great for this game, so you don't have to be too concerned with playing Hearthstone. All right, next game. So for the final game is gonna be World of Warcraft. I mean, honestly, if you're gonna get this mobile laptop, I don't expect you to do any heavy raiding of the sword. Just simply, it's gonna be quite a challenge. Look, just trying to load the model, it's thinking. And by the way, I'm loading this with 0 add-ons. All right. 29 frames per second. 24 frames per second. Oh boy. Oh boy. 16 frames per second. What is this set up as? Let's see. Graphics. Full screen, which is 2880. Setting graphic quality 3. Let's go to 1. Thinking. Okay. Low. Disabled. Everything is at the lowest possible setting. Vertical sync enabled. Okay. So best case scenario, you're doing 30 frames per second, and this is the lowest possible setting. I didn't even go anywhere yet. Let's try and do some quests. I mean, it is choppy. I'm sure you'll be able to do some quests. Let's take a look. This looks about right. While flying, 29 frames per second. I mean, it's gotta be a way to boost this. Resolution 1152 by 720. Yeah, we didn't even try 1440. Okay. Maybe in the city it was a little heavy, because right now I'm at 60 frames per second. So I'm gonna see in low action, see how well we can do. But I can tell you from now, if in the city doing nothing was doing 29, 30 frames per second, I guarantee you during raiding it's gonna be even lower. Well, let's see. So, while killing a few mobs, you're dropping to 46, 47, 45 frames per second. Not really noticeable while you're doing those quests. I mean, I don't think it's gonna, I mean, unless you're PvPing, we can try that too. But unless you're doing a little bit more intense, I think it's fine. You can absolutely do your dailies that way. Let's try a little bit heavier. A little bit more action, dropping to 45, 40, 39, 46, 37, 41. Okay, we're gonna move it a little bit higher. So, I'm gonna go 1440, but keeping graphics quality to 1. 31, 32 frames per second. Can't tell you that's the best experience you're gonna have, but I don't think it's that noticeable to the 44 frames per second, but it's playable. Let's see if we can do a bit better than that. Graphics quality 2, still 1440 by 900. Not a major hit, still 31 frames per second. Okay, so now we're gonna try a PvP and we're gonna try raiding. Alright, let's do that right now. Battleground. Let's see how well that does during action. 31 frames per second. Mind you, I'm still at 1440 and graphics setting 2. Let's go to 3. 29, 30 frames per second. Good. Let's see what happens when I encounter a lot of horde. Still 35 frames per second. We're about 10 alliance here. There we go. $31, $32, $34. $26, $24, $22 frames per second, $28, $27. Of course, if your stun lock doesn't really help, but let's see if we can improve these numbers a little bit. I'm gonna go to graphics 1, but keep it at 1440 by 900. We're at 40 frames per second. $25, $27, $30 frames per second. 26 frames per second, 28 frames per second. So, I mean, I wouldn't do PvP because you can't really play PvP with 27 frames per second. You're just gonna lose all the time. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and try raiding now. Alright, finally some raiding. I don't know if you can hear this, but the fan is definitely loud and turned on. Very noticeable. Okay, so as you can see, I'm doing 15 frames per second, which is terrible. And I believe it's because it's throttling now that the fan is on. So let's take a look at the temperatures. As you can see, I'm doing about 43 Celsius. Yeah, it's about 43 at the hottest point. 41, 43. So the fan definitely turned on. As you can see, the frames per second dropped significantly. So that's something to take into account. Let's see if we can improve these numbers though. It's already at graphic quality 1. I'm going to drop it to what it was originally deciding that would be best for me, which I think was... Wow. I can go the lowest, 900 by 600. Hopefully that'll improve things. 37, 28 frames per second, 30 frames per second. And this is at the lowest possible setting, as you can see here. 900 by 600 resolution, graphics setting 1, everything is off. And at best I'm doing 28 frames per second. If you really want to play it at what it was recommending, which I believe was, let's see, these settings. I think it was 1152. Okay, 1280. I'm still getting 30 frames per second. Playable, sure, 22 frames per second. I mean, you can still play. You'll die a lot, but you can still play. Let's see. Let's drop the graphics quality to 0 to 1, but leave it at 1280 by 800. And I'm still getting around 20 frames per second. So I don't think you can get any better numbers. I mean, I'm sure you can tweak it to get about 30 frames per second, but that's not the ideal scenario to rate. So can you? Yes. Should you? Please don't. Unless it's LFR and you don't really care. That's what people use LFR for anyways for. Okay, so this is gaming on the standard edition MacBook Air. I know some of you might ask me to try different games, and I would, but here's the thing. I would normally install Overwatch and try a 3D first-person shooter game, but for Mac, anyways, there's a limited number of them. And you know, I even bought this with the smaller drive, which is 128 gigabytes. So you're not going to be able to put two partitions, put 40 gigs or 50 gigs and make a Windows partition on it and then try Overwatch on it. You just won't do it. And if you want to go upgrade the drive and maybe even the RAM to do that, you might as well get the MacBook Pro. So this doesn't make sense to play a 3D game on it. This is mostly you can do certain amount of gaming. And you know, I went through several type of games just to give you a reference. I'm sure some games are a little bit more optimized than others, but this will just give you a general idea based on some games on how well, you know, you're gonna be able to play, how well or what kind of expectations you're gonna have on these specific games. And similar games of the same standard. If it was a 3D game or first-person shooter, we don't have. But I don't think it's gonna do that well. Now, if you look at the other videos I've done, which is related to 18, 17, 16 on the MacBook Pro, and you can look at the graphics, you know, I think it was a 655, I'll correct that. It was doing, you know, it was doing okay in Overwatch as a first-person shooter, but and that was a significantly a stronger video card than this one over here. So if you're gonna do it, there's no point. You're just gonna die all the time. Anyways, so if you have any questions, I know you might be asking me to do other games. I'll see. I'm definitely not keeping this one. I'm definitely returning it because this is definitely not a gaming laptop. You're just, you know, this just gives you a standard idea of what you can do with this graphics card. But if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I'll do my best to always answer them within a day. If you have any suggestions or anything else, please let me know. I would ask you to please subscribe. I would like to get to at least 1,000 subscribers so I can, you know, keep making videos and monetize them in the future. Thanks again and take care.